All right. So if you were just joining in or kind of settling in, we do need a chair today. So we will start with that. So some of you know the legs up on the chair position that I often put in here, usually for Shavasana relaxation, but we will start in that position today. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here. There's some familiar faces, there's some new faces. Maybe this is your first time or your second time joining in. Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. And I'm so glad that we're getting some new people coming to practice with us. If you're new to yoga or you haven't done it very much, or the way I teach is different from how you have practiced yoga, feel free to add any modifications or adaptations to the movements or the poses that I'm offering. It is, we start pretty gently, but I will add in some strength and core work, some balance work as we go. So if it doesn't work in your body because you have pain or it's uncomfortable or you're just not able to do it, or maybe your wrist can't take the pressure, there's always options, including substituting, doing something else completely different or similar, or coming into a resting position. So keeping in mind that nothing should be painful as we go. So we're going to start on our backs with the legs up on a chair. So we're going to have our calves resting on the chair so that the hips and knees are bent. And it doesn't have to be like that 90-degree angle. So, somewhere between 60 and 90-degree bend at the hips and the knees. And you might notice here that my knees are sort of rolled out to the side a little bit. And part of that is the attachment of some of your hip flexor muscles, which is what we're trying to release tension with this position. So if the knees want to roll out, you let them. I'm going to have you place one hand on your belly and the other hand on your chest, letting the elbows rest on the ground. So hands don't need to be exactly in the center. And we're going to be here in some stillness for 2 to 3 minutes. If it's comfortable to you, closing the eyes, but it's not necessary. Take the first few moments here to bring your attention to your breath. So feeling the movement of the breath in the body, the belly and chest expanding on inhale, contracting on exhale, expanding as you breathe in to make space for the air in your lungs, contracting as you breathe out as you empty the air from the lungs. And in yoga, breathing in and out through the nose, unless we're doing a specific breath practice. But pretty much most of the movement practice, breathing in and out through the nose, starting to slow the breathing down. It's not big, deep breaths, but just lengthened, not effortful. Keep the ease to the breath. You're here in this position with the legs up. A couple of reasons. The hips being bent and knees being bent. Place your hip flexors in a relaxed position. And I'm sure you've heard the term hip flexor, but some are surprised to know you have 5 hip flexor muscles on each hip. In the rowing stroke, you never get to lengthen the hip flexors all the way. So that repetitive practice of motion never gets the opening of the hip flexors. So we will do a few things to stretch them today. This position is the relaxation position for them. So the off switch for your hip flexors. It also is a position to decompress the spine. So it can feel pretty good to your back, especially if you've had a long day on your feet or a lot of exercise. This is a really lovely recovery position. Take the next few breaths and set an intention for your practice. So, thinking about the reason you've shown up today. Is it to perhaps counteract or complement some of your exercise routines you already do? Is it to prevent injury? Is it to feel better? Whatever your reason, bring this thought to the front of your mind and breathe with intention. So we're going to take our legs off the chair. And I'm just going to move that chair out of the way, but coming back onto my back. And I'm starting here with my knees bent and the feet flat. We're going to do this small, subtle movement of a pelvic tilt. So we're flattening the lower back into the floor, the small of the back pressing into the floor. Tailbone tips up, but not lifting the hips. And then on the inhale, allowing that to release. We're going to do that a few more times. So you're exhaling to flatten the lower back into the floor. Tailbone tips up. Keep your butt and your legs relaxed, so it's all abdominals. Inhale, release. We're going to do a few more like that. So this is primarily the rectus abdominis, the central set of abdominal muscles, the six pack that's doing this movement. They start up at the lower ribs, go down, and actually dive in and attach to the back of the pubic bones. So it's anchoring at the ribs and pulling that pubic bone up so you tilt the pelvis backwards. I'm going to do a couple more. That rectus abdominis is a strong stabilizing muscle in the latter half of the drive phase of the stroke, and certainly at the finish, to keep that spine long and also to control that movement. Your next inhale, allowing this to relax. I'm going to add some leg movement onto this. So bring the soles of the feet together and let the knees come out. So you're in this like butterfly or open book position. Notice how the leg position pulls the low back away from the floor. It kind of arches it up naturally. So we're going to do that same pelvic tilt. You exhale, flatten the lower back into the floor and pull the knees up and together. And then on your inhale, allow the knees to come out. The back sort of naturally pulls away from the floor. Again, exhale, press the low back into the floor, knees up and together. Inhale, knees release away, back pulls away from the floor. We're going to do a few more here. So we're continuing to work on that rectus abdominis with the pelvic tilt. We're getting a little inner thigh strengthening here. So that is helpful in the catch to keep the knees together as opposed to knees out to the sides. And then that allows you to use the glute maximus instead of the outer hip muscles, or shortening the IT band when the knees are out in the catch position. I'm going to do one more. And bonus, this inner thigh, this abdominal work gets the pelvic floor muscles to contract. All right, knees up, walk the feet out to more hip distance apart, and just gently rock the knees side to side, a little windshield wiper motion. And then pull the knees in towards you, gently hugging in. Perhaps you're holding shins or the backs of thighs here instead. You could rock a little side to side or circle the hips and knees. We'll bring the knees back in through center. One option is to keep holding the backs of the legs, or if you can keep your legs in that little balled up shape, you could bring your arms down by the sides. You're going to start to open up the backs of the legs here. So on the inhale, press or push the heels towards the ceiling. Start to straighten the knees, but keep at least a slight bend there in the knees. And then exhale, allow the legs to come back in that little ball. Relax the feet. So we inhale, push the feet up, press through your heels, and then exhale back into that little ball. I'm going to do a few more here. We're warming up, we're opening up. So as opposed to making this intense or painful, this should feel like a welcome opening through the backs of the legs as opposed to something kind of intense or that you're grimacing against. One more. And then we'll lower the feet and take your time, but we're going to roll on over and come up to hands and knees. We're going to be on our knees for the next several poses. So padding the knees here can be helpful in making it all more comfortable, especially once we get on to like the third or fourth position. We're weight bearing through the knees. Knees under hips, wrist under shoulders. Often people have some tightness in the forearms and the wrist or pain with that pressure there. So a couple of options to modify would be on loose fists. So the wrist is in neutral, or down on your forearms on the floor, or maybe forearms on the blocks here. We're going to do some cat and cow movements. So this is rounding and arching of the spine, warming up still. So exhale, round the back, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone under. And then on the inhale, we're going to lift the tailbone, belly towards the floor, chest forward. And back and forth between those two. We exhale, round the back, belly button towards spine, push the floor away. Inhale, hips up, belly down, chest forward, broadening through the collarbones. And forward and back here a few more times. Now you could keep it right here, this centered cat and cow. Or you can add a little forward and backward weight shift to this motion. So as you round the back on the exhale, you're going to shift forward like just a couple of inches, not a big shift. On the inhale, you arch the back downward and shift backwards. So you exhale, round the back, tuck the chin, shift forward. Inhale, arch the back downward, shifting backward. Forward and backward a few times. So it's a little bit of a wave-like movement of the spine. But if you're like, oh, that's too complicated, keep it simple. Sometimes simple is the best. All right, we're going to bring this back into this neutral tabletop position. So neutral spine, again, knees under hips. We're going to do some circling motions of the torso and the hips. So on the inhale, the hips come out towards one side, back towards your heels. Exhale, bring the hips to the other side and forward again. So circling that torso, bring it to one side, back to the other side and forward. And you might be taking this opportunity to really assess what's going on with your body, any tension in the back, the hips, shoulders, maybe the side waist or ribs, because you might keep this movement small. You could make the sensation of stretch bigger by pushing the ribs out to the sides more, or hips coming closer to the heels, almost sweeping through a child's pose. Pause at the top of the next circle in reverse directions. So a lot of times these initial movements and poses I do on my mat, I'm curious to see what my body is telling me. Where am I tight? Where am I stiff? Where does it feel good to stretch or feel good to move? Where is it uncomfortable or painful? What do I need to be a little more mindful of? All right, bringing this back here into that neutral spine position. We're going to walk our knees out a little wider than the hips. This is to stabilize the hips and the low back and get the rotation in the mid and upper back. I'm going to bring my hands out to the side so they're just off of my yoga mat, hands a little wider than the shoulders. I'm going to turn to face you so you can see me from this top view. We're going to do a little upper back twist. So the elbows go out, almost like push-up motion, but I'm going to lower one shoulder and look away from it. And then inhale, press back up through center. So exhale, elbows go out, lower the other shoulder, turn your head away from it. And then inhale, press up through center. And then just alternating sides here. So with the knees wide, we're mostly isolating this rotation in the mid and upper back, and certainly the neck and head. And that mid and upper back is designed to rotate, but often that area gets really stiff and tight. So we're loosening it up here. Bring it back up through center, walking the knees back in. And we're coming into a puppy pose. So puppy is hips staying over the knees, and you're going to bring your forehead and forearms down on the floor here. So if the forehead doesn't rest easily, you could stack your hands under the forehead. So similar to child's pose, except for that is hips over heels. Puppy is hips over knees. And there's no rounding in the back. In fact, there might be a little bit of arching downward of the back here. Take a few breaths. This could be a resting position for you. This or child's pose. We're going to do a little strength work here, a little core and hip stability, glute maximus work. So I'd like you to walk your knees in so they're touching, knees together. And as I was saying, often there's a little bit of a cow tilt of the spine. So see if you can kind of pull the lower ribs in towards the back ribs or towards the spine. Not rounding the back, but just kind of lengthening out here. Maybe you'll feel your abs engaged. Make a solid wall of your abs here. And on the inhale, keep the hips level. We're going to reach one leg up and back. And then on the exhale, lower that knee. And then the other side, hips stable and level. Inhale, reach that leg up and back. Exhale, lower the knee. And we're going to alternate sides. I'm going slow motion here, but I'm matching the breath. Slow motion, so I have to work a little harder to keep stable. Right? There's more time where I have one leg up. And I'm using my hips, my core to stay steady. And then I'm using my glute maximus and the hamstrings to lift the leg. That glute maximus turns on and activates and is a powerful pusher in the second half of the drive phase. Maybe not half, but second part. We'll lower both knees here. Take a breath. So you could stay on your forearms here if you'd like. We're coming up to hands again. We're going to stretch one leg back, toes are down and tucked under. Little toe rocking movement. So inhale, shifting forward, bending through the toe joints. Exhale, press the heel back for the calf stretch. And forward and back a few times. Warming up. Toe joints, ankle joints, feeling maybe stretch in the sole of the foot, the calf. Sometimes I have a little pop the first few movements. Lower that knee down and switch sides. Same movement here. Noticing if you feel difference between left and right. This is that gentle warm up here before we come into a deeper stretch. Movement for the ankle and the calf. All right, lowering that knee down. I'm setting us up for down dog. Down dog can be a challenging pose for lots of different reasons. Shoulders, wrist, tight hamstrings, tight calves. You could come into puppy. Puppy is sort of a kneeling down dog. You could reach your arms forward and get that lengthening of the spine. If you're up for trying down dog, hands a little forward of shoulders, fingers are spread out. Tuck your toes, hips up and back. Now I'm feeling a little tension in the backs of my legs, so I'm going to bend my knees a little, push the sitting bones up and back so the spine lengthens. Head relaxed between the upper arms. I'm going to be here for a few breaths. If you're like, whew, this is tough, maybe lower the knees, rest, come back to it if you'd like. Or add some movements to the down dog. So it could be a pedaling of the feet, bending one knee, straightening the other. Shake that head out, relaxing the neck, muscles of the jaw. Settle into the down dog. Looking forward, we're stepping the left foot between the hands. And if you're like, there's no way that foot's getting there in one fell swoop, you can lower the knees, left hand helping that foot come forward. You want the ankle underneath the knee here, roughly speaking. And then we're rising up, so you could bring the hands to the thigh and lift the torso into that upright position. We're coming into a stretch for the right hip flexors, so right front of the thigh and hip. Because some of them come through the abdomen attached to the spine, if we let the back arch too much, it gives on the stretch. So lengthen the tailbone towards the floor. This levels the pelvis. And if you're tight in the hip flexors, you already start to feel a stretch in the front of the right hip and thigh. Keep the tailbone lengthening down. Maybe you bend that front knee a little bit more to feel more stretch in the front of the right hip and thigh. But if you already feel it, don't push it. For me, I don't need much forward motion, movement to get the stretch. You could keep your hands down or reach your arms up overhead, hold elbows. Reach the elbows towards the ceiling. Now we start to pull the rib cage up, which pulls the spine up. So we get that lengthening from both ends of the hip flexor muscles. And then we exhale, release, bring the hands down to the floor. We're stepping it back into a down dog. Take a few breaths here again. Maybe that pedal of the feet or shake of the head or kind of swivel the heels side to side. Settle in that down dog, looking forward. It's the right foot between the hands. Remember, you can help it get there. We're not in a rush. We're lowering the back knee. Hands up on the front thigh to lift the torso into that upright position. Because of the proximal attachment, the top attachment of all 5 of the hip flexors, to get the stretch, we have to lengthen the tailbone towards the earth. And already, I feel stretch right there, the front of the left hip and thigh. You might not need to go any further, or tailbone stays down as you bend that front knee, just until you feel that stretch. If you give and that low back arches, you've probably lost a lot of that hip flexor stretch. You could stay with arms down or hold elbows overhead, lengthen the elbows towards the ceiling. Take a few breaths. And we exhale. We're going to release our hands to the floor. Lift the back knee. We're coming into a forward fold position. So I'm stepping the back foot to the front foot. So a couple of options here for forward fold. One is the ragdoll, knees a little bent or more generously, upper body draped over lower body. Now, if you're really tight in the hamstrings, if you have osteoporosis, if you have a herniated disc, here's the option that's safer and not less likely to cause injury. That's feet wide, butt back, forearms here on the thighs. So my spine is long. Either pose, you could do a little forward, backward weight shift, side to side weight shift. If you're in that ragdoll position, you have a few other options. You could hold elbows, getting that traction pull through the upper back. You could let the top of the head hang down and shake it like you're saying no or nodding yes. This is also a position to release tension on the hip flexors, although you might be stretching the hamstrings, lower back. Bend the knees a little bit, look forward, strong legs. We're going to rise up to stand. Maybe you reach your arms up and overhead, and then exhale, hands to prayer at your heart. Let this go. Shake out the wrists, roll the shoulders. I'm going to move that blanket out of the way so I don't trip on it later. So we did a traditional down dog. I'm going to show you a down dog using the chair, or this could be using the wall One of my favorite positions to do this is in the kitchen, at the kitchen countertop. But basically, I'm using the back of the chair here as opposed to the seat. And the back of the chair, this chair is a little bit low, but that's what I have here. If you're doing this at the wall, you're going to position your hands about shoulder width and shoulder height apart. I'm going to show you here at the chair just because if I'm at the wall, you can't see my profile. So I'm going to place my hands here. I'm going to walk my feet back a little bit, but I'm starting to hinge from my hips. Bring the spine close to parallel to the floor. Now this can be a pretty intense hamstring stretch, so back of the legs might be feeling it. You could put that bend in the knees so the spine stays long. My gaze is down here, and I'm going to do similar to that pedaling motion here, but I'm going to bend one knee and push the other hip back and switch sides. So I'm in the shape of down dog, right? I've just changed my orientation to the earth. And I'm not weight bearing as much through my hands, which can be nice. We'll bring that back into center, look forward, bend your knees. You might even step forward here to come up to standing. Maybe take a couple of backward shoulder rolls from here. So I'm going to do a standing sun salutation using that down dog shape we just did. It's not the same as a regular sun salutation, but it's a way to do a sequence of moves that can kind of wake up the body and connect the breath. So I'm going to stand just a few feet back from the chair, or if you're at the wall, you can stand a few feet back from the wall. So on the inhale, we're going to reach up, get taller. On the exhale, the hands to the chair or the wall. Walk the feet back a little bit, hinge from the hips, that long spine, maybe a bend in the knees here in the down dog. On the inhale, step one foot forward. We bend that knee and lift the chest. And on the exhale, step back into that standing down dog, hips back, maybe a little bend to the knees. Inhale, step the other foot forward, bend the knee, lift the chest. Exhale, step it back into that standing down dog. Bend the knees, maybe walk it forward. Inhale, rise up to stand, reaching up. And exhale, hands to prayer. Let that go. Shake it out. Roll the shoulders. I'm going to do that again. So inhale, reach up, get taller, spread your fingers out. Exhale, hands to the chair or the wall. Those hips go back, maybe a little bend to the knees. Inhale, step one foot forward, bend the knee, lift the chest. Exhale, step it back into that standing down dog. Inhale, other foot forward, bend the knee, lift the chest. Exhale it into the standing down dog. Bend the knees, maybe walk it forward. Inhale, rise up, reach up. And exhale, hands to prayer. Let it go. Shake it out. All right. We will be using that chair in a little bit. So you might, or you might use it, or you might not need it. Most of us will need it. So you might turn it so the seat is forward, but you could also use it so the back of the chair is to you. I have it here at the front of my mat. I'm starting at the front of my mat. I'm going to take a medium to big step back here with my left foot coming into warrior one. Warrior one meaning I have my heels lined up with my sitting bones. My back foot is flat, turned out to 10 o'clock-ish. Front knee bent over the ankle, forward or back a bit, either way, but in line with it. Lengthen the tailbone towards the earth. So maybe you feel that same kind of hip flexor stretch here. So this is a way to do a hip flexor stretch without getting on the ground. So it might be a nice one to do after you've been in the boat or on the earth. And then top of the head is reaching up. You could keep your arms out of it, especially if you have a lot of neck tension or shoulder problems, or arms float up here, palms face each other. And notice if the shoulder is kind of scrunched up, can you release the muscles that run between the shoulders and the neck? Gazing straight ahead. I'm going to bring my hands to my hips. And start to hinge forward from the hips. Pause when the torso comes in line with the back leg. And we're going to firm the belly here. Tuck the chin slightly. So really solid line, back heel to top of head. Reach your hands towards the back foot. So the palms are in, the thumbs are down. Actively reach so you feel the neck get really long. This is starting to activate our lower trapezius muscles, this arm position that is. So getting you out of that kind of hunched shoulder position. So on the exhale, I'm going to bring my hands down to the chair. You could use 2 yoga blocks for this. This is just a little bit easier transition. I'm coming in a supported warrior 3, which is a balanced position. So I'm going to lift the back heel, start to put my weight on the front foot. Maybe that chair is too close. And I'm going to lift the back leg. So back toes point straight down as opposed to out to the side, keeping those hips really level. Gaze straight down, firm the belly, tuck the chin. If you're like simple, easy, you want a little more challenge, maybe you reach one hand back towards that back foot. Maybe you switch and do the other. Maybe you're like, I got this, reach both here in this warrior 3. One more inhale. Exhale, bring the hands down, lower that foot beside the other, bend the knees, rise up. Whew, my right leg and hip are telling me it got a little work. I'm going to do that on the other side. So now it's the right foot back into that warrior 1, heel down, back foot turned out, space between the heels as opposed to the feet in a tightrope. That keeps injury out of our low back and our sacroiliac joint. Front knee bent, tailbone towards the earth. Maybe you feel that hip flexor stretch here. Top of the head reaches up, arms could float up. Release tension in the muscles that run between the shoulders and the neck. This is warrior 1. I'm going to take us into warrior 1 arrow. So hands to the hips, hinge forward and pause when the torso comes in line with the back leg or about where you think it is. Firm the belly, tuck the chin, actively reach the hands towards the back foot. So you feel the shoulder blades slide down your back and firm on the back ribs. Keep the front knee bent here if you can. So I'm going to bring my hands down to the chair, that back heel coming up. I'm getting ready for this balance on the one leg. So I'm going to lift that back leg, toes point down. You might have a little bend in that knee. If you're tight, especially in the hamstrings, try to keep those hips level as opposed to opening that right hip. Firm the belly, tuck the chin, gaze straight down. Maybe you play with lifting one hand, reaching back, or the other. Maybe you're feeling like you could do both. Actively reach back. Similar arm position to that warrior 1 arrow we did. So lower the hands, lower that right foot, bend the knees, and rise up. Shake it out, roll it out. I'm going to move that chair out of the way. Next will be mostly for using it in Shavasana if you'd like. I'm going to come to the back of my mat. I'm eventually going to down dog, but I'm going to take us through a deep squat. Deep squat is not for everyone. So especially if you have any knee issues, low back issues that might be pulling on there. Sometimes it's the ankle or the toe joints that don't allow you to do this. So you could just go straight to down dog. We're all going to meet you there. Or feet hip distance apart, knees forward, and we're going to lower down. So my knees are going to come forward of my feet and the heels are coming up. And you might need to have your hands on the floor for balance or up on the yoga blocks here. And here, we're basically in the catch position with the lower body. You could do a little forward, backward, tiny little weight shifts, working on getting that mobility in the ankles and the knees. Keep the breath. The more compact you can get yourself, without extreme measures in that catch position, the more force you can generate from there. So I'm going to walk my hands forward, lift my hips, come into a down dog. Head relax between the upper arms, hips up and back. Lower both knees. We're going to find child's pose or puppy pose. We did puppy before. Child's pose is hips over heels, forehead resting. Puppy, hips over knees, forehead resting. You could also just come onto your belly and rest if neither of those positions feel good to you. Take a few breaths here. Lengthening that breath out again. Come back to your intention for the practice. Remember your reason for showing up today, your reason for carving this hour out of your week. You could stay here resting longer, coming back to that lengthened breath. When you're ready, I'm going to have you come onto your side for a quad stretch here. So you could support the head with the arm or slide a pillow or block or folded blanket underneath. We're going to stretch the top leg. So I'm going to bring that foot back, reach back with the top hand to find the ankle or the foot. Sometimes it can be challenging to get this position if your quads are tight, knee issues, shoulder issues. You can either hold the hem of your pants, or if you don't want to stretch that out, you can use a strap here to hold that foot position. Either way, lengthen the kneecap towards the foot of the mat. So if the knee is up or forward, you really lost out on stretching all four of the quads and some of the hip flexors. So kneecap towards the foot of the mat, even if you can't get there, that intention of it, you're going to start to feel more stretch at the top of the thigh. Keeping the breath. We'll release this here, roll over, and we're going to do that on the other side. So I'm doing the sideline version of the quad stretch, but certainly could do a standing version of this. Foot behind, holding on. Lengthen the kneecap towards the foot of the mat, so away from the head. Take a few breaths. Remembering that when we stretch, we're looking for sensations of stretch that feel mild to moderate versus painful or intense. The painful, intense, aggressive stretching actually makes you tighten up against it. Right? If you've ever, as we all have, experienced pain, our body's reaction that's reflexive, meaning we're not consciously doing it, is to tense up. All right, we're going to let that go. Come onto your back. You're going to do a little bit more here with the core and the hip stability. This is a half bridge. And by this, I mean we're going to lift only halfway up into bridge. We'll be unweighting one foot and then the other. And our goal is to keep the hips really level. So I'm going to walk you through it. So line the heels up with the sitting bones, feet flat, knees are bent. And we're lifting just the hips and the lower back. So I'm not rising all the way up. I'm going to place my hands on the front hip bones, and they are going to monitor whether my hips are level. Instead of them tipping side to side, I want to keep them super level. As I inhale, I'm lifting one heel. So I'm on the tiptoe of one foot, and then exhale, lower it down. Inhale, lift the other heel. Exhale, lower. So I'm alternating legs, lifting on the inhale, lowering the heel on the exhale. And the movement itself is not the point. The point is to slight or partly unweight the foot, but try to keep the hips really level. So the leg that's down, you should feel that glute maximus, the buttocks muscle, working to stabilize you. and the innermost layer of abdominal muscles to do that. If you'd like a little or a lot more challenge, I feel like, lift the whole foot and lower, keeping the hips really level. I wish I could figure out sort of a half step in between the heel lift and the whole foot lift, because I feel like the whole foot lift is quite a bit harder. So stabilizing that pelvis and the core here, very important in the boat. All right, both feet down, lower the hips in the back. Maybe rock the knees gently side to side, that little windshield wiper motion. So that was the half bridge, and that was really to focus on that glute maximus work, the core strength. I really like that one. There's a lot happening there, so there's a lot of bang for your buck in that exercise. But sometimes it's just not as satisfying as doing a full bridge and getting that bigger back bend. So if you'd like the bridge, you could also do a supported bridge. I'll demonstrate that first. So I'm going to use the yoga block, but it could be a foam roller or folded blanket. You could put it under your hips and just rest there. That's a really lovely restorative pose, tractioning to the back, and a mild inversion. If you'd like the active bridge, heels line up with the sitting bones, arms by the side, lift your hips and back. Once you're up, you're going to kind of roll towards one shoulder and tuck the other shoulder blade in closer to the spine, and do the same on the other side. Press the arms into the floor here. Maybe you interlace your fingers and press the arms into the floor. Squeeze the glutes to get a little higher. Notice, did the knees track outward? If so, press into the underside of the big toe knuckles. That keeps the knees in line with the hips. So again, similar to the catch position, we want the knees and ankles and hips all in line with each other, so you can use the more powerful muscles and put less tension on your IT band. All right, we're going to bring the arms out from underneath, coming down onto your back. Once your hips are down, maybe a few windshield wipers. And if it would feel good, you could pull the knees into your chest, gently rocking here. We're lowering both feet down to the floor. So I'm going to cross one ankle over the other foot and pause here, because maybe this is enough hip stretch for you. Or if you're not feeling much, pull that leg in towards you. Reach between the legs to hold the back of the thigh. One other option would be to do the same thing but use a strap. So if you are struggling to get the back of the thigh, you could use the strap. Gives you just a little bit more way to grade how strong the stretch is or the positioning. So this right here, stretching that outer hip, buttocks, hopefully is what you're feeling with that. You could keep it right here. Again, sometimes keeping it simple is the best. Or this is my buy one, get two free yoga poses. So that leg, the back of the thigh you're holding on, you could start to reach that foot up towards the ceiling. Don't straighten the knee all the way. And then pull the top of the foot towards the shin. So you're pushing up through the heel. And then we're going to let that come back down. So I keep that ankle crossed, that part of the stretch. And I inhale, reach the other leg up, pull the top of the foot towards the shin, and exhale, let it go. So I've got that outer hip stretch and the leg crossed over. And then I start to stretch the hamstring as I bring the foot up. And then pulling that foot back from this position is a sciatic nerve glide. We're going to do a couple more. Nerve flossing is the other term for this. So if you have some tightness, tension, some bound down connective tissue along the path that sciatic nerve takes, this is one way to kind of loosen up any of that bound down, tightened down area. All right, we're going to lower both feet down. Might feel good to pull both knees in and just gently rock a little bit. We're going to do that on the other side. So ankle over, pause. Is this enough stretch already? Or pull the legs in towards you, reach and hold the back of the thigh. If you had to lift your head to get it, that's fine, but let the head come back down so you're not straining through the neck. Remember the option, you could use the strap behind the thigh here. Let the shoulders, the neck relaxed. Remember, sometimes keeping it simple is the best. You don't have to add these extra two on, but if it would feel good to you, you can experiment and see. Inhale, straighten, start to straighten the knee, pull the top of the foot towards your shin, and then exhale, bend the knee, relax the foot. So we're going to do a few more. Do not straighten that knee all the way, even if you can. Two reasons. It starts to stretch and pull on the tendons of the hamstring, the back of the knee. Tendons are not designed to be stretchy, extensible. They are meant for tensile, strong tissue. So you don't want to stretch there. You want that stretch mid-back of the thigh, maybe the calf. And if you straighten the knee all the way, sometimes it pulls too much on the sciatic nerve, and that can irritate it as opposed to freeing it up. One more. And we lower both feet down to the floor. Maybe a few gentle windshield wipers here. I'm going to come into a happy baby. I'm going to give you some options. A happy baby should be a relaxed pose, but if you're tight in your back or your hips, sometimes grabbing the feet is just a little too much. So here's a relaxed happy baby. So I'm going to pull the legs in, hold the back of the thighs, let the knees bend, and bring the knees out a little wider. So here I can keep the knees bent, the feet are relaxed, and gently rocking side to side to get like a little bit of a low back massage. So you could keep it there, that might be the best for you. Or reach up to hold ankles, doing the same thing. Or reach up, holding soles of the feet, rocking gently. And if you're like, oh, I gotta do that feet, that's the way you do it. It's cheating if you do the other way. It's not. It's accommodating what's happening in your body so that you get the most benefit as opposed to hurting yourself, which is really just smart. All right, come back onto your back. Pull the knees in towards you, but let the arms come out to the sides, this reclined twist. So we're going to drop the legs over to one side. So if this gets kind of intense or feels like something's about to pop out of place, remember, you can make this less intense by putting a prop underneath the knees, block, folded blanket, pillow, or in between the knees. You also don't have to have the knees hugged in real tight so they could slide away from you a little bit. Gaze up towards the ceiling or head turned away from the legs. So we're going to pull the knees in and roll onto your back, maybe gently hugging in here or rocking a little bit. When you're ready, the knees will drop over to the other side for this twist, this recline twist. Maybe it's okay on this side without anything, but maybe it feels better to actually prop yourself, support yourself. So this is about gentle stretch and not trying to engage or hold too much. Gaze up towards the ceiling or head turned away from the legs. And just take a scan of the body. Are there places where you're still kind of holding on or digging in? Sometimes it's the hips or the back. Sometimes you kind of got your foot weirdly propped. Sometimes without knowing it, you've tensed the muscles of the face or you're clenching the jaw. See if you can tell that part of your body to let go. I'm going to pull the knees in and roll onto your back again. Decide if there's something you'd like to do before we move into Shavasana, the relaxation position. So it could be happy baby, a different hip stretch. Maybe you have an inversion pose in your practice that you'd like to add in. Another down dog. You're like, she didn't do enough core. You could add a little bit more core in there, or your physical therapy exercises. I'm going to get myself set up for Shavasana. I'm going to come back into that hip flexor relaxation position with the chair. I'm using this small folding chair, but legs on the couch or ottoman, bed if it's low enough, could be perfect. I'm also going to elevate my hips a little bit with a folded blanket. So I'm going to have that off to the side, bringing my legs up on the calf, calf up on the chair, lying back. And then I'm going to lift my hips and slide that folded blanket underneath my hips. So it's a little bit of elevation under the pelvis. If this doesn't feel good to your back, take it out. The benefit of this, as well as releasing tension in your hip flexors, it tips that pelvis back and actually releases tension in the pelvic floor muscles. So sometimes pelvic floor muscles can hold a lot of tension, and that can be uncomfortable for obvious reasons. And this position puts the hip flexors and the pelvic floor muscles into a slackened position so they get to rest. Sometimes I call it like the off switch position for muscles, is when they're in a slackened position and passively held there. Arms where it feels comfortable, could be hands under head or overhead diamond shape, or even down or back to that, hands making the connection with the belly, chest. Maybe it feels natural to close your eyes, but maybe it doesn't. I'm going to do a breath here just to help signal our transition into this restorative, restful part of the practice. So take an inhale through your nose, open the mouth and sigh out the exhale. I'm going to do that again. Let it go. Let the breath go. So you're no longer controlling the breath or breathing with a certain intention. Your body knows how to breathe for you without your conscious control. The last 55 minutes have been sort of a breathing practice as well as the movement practice. Now we get to release it. And remember that even though we're here doing nothing and it might feel like we're accomplishing nothing, being here, rest is recovery time. So, like the physiological, the biochemical processes that happen when you rest are healing, right? Healing from an injury, digestion, meaning digestion of your food, but also digestion of information, right? If you've learned something new today, or even in the last hour, or your body has learned something, even if your conscious mind has not, this is incorporating that new information while you rest. Few minutes, 5 minutes of relaxation is practice for sleep. Take the next few minutes to rest. One of the benefits of practicing yoga on Zoom is that you can stay here longer in Shavasana and relaxation. So feel free to do that. But if you are ready to move on, start to deepen the breath. Maybe you add some gentle movements like turning the head, wiggling the fingers, the toes, circling the wrists, the ankles. If you're on your back, it could feel good to reach your arms overhead and stretch and lengthen through the torso. Sometimes that will signal a yawn in the body. From the back, bend the knees, roll to your side, and just pause for a moment here if you can. Support the head. Taking this opportunity perhaps to appreciate your body, your breath, your health, your yoga practice. Being gentle, pressing yourself up to a seated position. Thank you all for being here, sharing your practice this evening. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste. Thank you
Thank you,
all. Please
Laura.
let me know if you have any questions,
Thank
comments,
you. Have a good
suggestions.
night.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
You're
Thank you, Laura.
welcome.
Thanks, Laura. That was
You're
wonderful.
welcome.